Hi there, welcome to the Noah Presgrove case, continuing on with the latest shocking reveals of Kaden Pressy dating back to October 2nd, 2023 and up to October 6th in Facebook Messenger conversations with a particular individual unknown to my knowledge. But we're continuing on with the notes and relaying it. Take in mind, screenshots cannot be shared for respect of privacy and whatnot. But I've seen the screenshots themselves and what Kaden Pressy had to say in the early days, roughly a month after Noah Presgrove's death. So you'd be thinking it's more accurate and fresh compared to 2024 onwards with what Kaden had to say. But that's not quite the case, because the last video that I did, take in mind the very first one what I did was to do with Travis Monson and Colton Newton, Kaden's mention of those names and when they arrived, when they returned back, etc. The last video that I did, part 2, was almost like miscellaneous, a combination of stuff where Kaden was talking about what time Georgia Brealey left the party at 11 p.m. Sunday night, and that Kaden went to sleep at 11:30 Sunday night. Makes no sense because Kaden's own hard evidence counters that, and Kaden's in possession of his own hard evidence, so technically he should know, or at least be able to remind himself of the actual time. It's not like his phone was taken in by police, so all Kaden would have to do is look back, check the phone, check the snaps, whatever, and he would know when he was still awake. He would know to an extent when Georgia Brealey were present and when they were not. But when Kaden's having a conversation with a person online, he just said, well, I think this and I think that. Not good enough. What's it like today then? Well, be sure to stick around, don't go anywhere, and we'll continue on the conversation of replies and messages on Facebook Messenger. And one or two particular events or moments mentioned by Kaden may shock you, raise a few eyebrows. I've never heard of it before. So you be sure to let me know what you think. And if you do have any additional questions, opinions, whatever, drop a comment down below under the video and I can read it back after. In recent time, it's been rather quiet, so hopefully we get a little bit more action going. Welcome to those that are present during the live premiere. Share your reactions in the live chat right side of the screen. If you want to support my channel, there is a PayPal link and channel membership link in the pinned messages under the video. And for the full playlist of this case and previous videos you may have missed out on, top right corner where the I symbol is, click up there and then you'll be able to find it. And as for the order, I'm just starting off from the last screenshot or the one after that point. And Kaden Pressy says in his own words that I am 100% truthfully telling you everything that I know. There's a difference between of what you know and what you may think. And what we've already seen by Kaden is he thinks this, he thinks that, like this, like that. Not completely confident, not backed up with hard evidence. So Kaden's kind of contradicted himself to some extent, but could you put the argument across and say, with the stuff that he does know of, he's telling the truth 100%? Who knows at this point? It was Justin Roy on Facebook in a comment which may have been archived in recent time. And Justin once mentioned that Kaden Pressy is telling 70% of the truth. My question is Kaden more or less open to members of the general public, depending who it is? Is Kaden more honest and open to Justin, or more open to a completely different individual, which we've never heard of before? Was Kaden more willing to answer questions and be more cooperative with the general public in the early days of 2023 or 2024 onwards? Makes you think. Do I think that Kaden's 100% truthfully telling the individual, at least in the Facebook Messenger convos, everything that he knows of? I'd argue and say Kaden is telling the truth based on his truth, based on what he believes in. But just because you believe in something and you feel confident about it to some extent doesn't mean to say it's the absolute truth. there might be a misunderstanding somewhere or a little bit of context lacking. And from a different perspective or viewpoint, if someone was to speak, it might go against Kaden, but it could be the truth. Depends how you look at it. So you let me know your thoughts below. From these videos that I've done, part 1, part 2, and now part 3, would you say Kaden is 100% truthfully telling everything that he knows of? You let me know. Next point mention. Kaden said there was a Mexican dude with friends, whoever they are, and they were present both nights at the party. That Kaden didn't socialise with them, but wish he did, so then he could have known more about them and who they were. Who could a Mexican dude be? If you have any names, list it below. And as for his friends, were they Texas boys or from a different place? I mean, a Mexican dude, where were they from? Were they from Texas? Were they from Duncan, Comanche, wherever? No names mentioned because Ken didn't know of them, but it's also important to highlight that as strangers and you are in the same place, how many strangers were there to Kaden? How many strangers were there to Noah? Because when it comes to strangers, you don't know them. You may or may not get on well with them. They may not understand your sense of humor or pick up on things. Sometimes it could be a bit of friction and tension. It can go wrong, backfire. Did any of that happen at the party? Who knows? To be present both nights, what's Kaden referring to there? Both nights as in complete nights, Saturday, Sunday, maybe? Or Sunday and partially Monday. See, when it comes to Saturday, there was only so many people present there. And from what Kaden Pressy had said in Parts in True Crime, it was long-time friends. It was Kaden, Jack, Noah, Brylan, Isaac, Carter, Logan, Avery, and Jasmine. No mention of Stephanie. No mention of Shandy or Shandon. But it depends at what time of the day. Because Saturday night, that's when Shandy or Shandon, the blonde-haired girl, was present, and maybe a few other people. In regard to Kaden Pressy, from what Kaden had said, or more so what Alicia had said, in her words, speaking on behalf of Kaden, Kaden only got to the party on Saturday almost past midnight, going into early Sunday morning, just a bit before midnight. So who was at the party then Saturday morning to Saturday lunchtime and afternoon? Who was really there? Interesting. A mention of the person on the other end messaging Kaden said, do you know of Ace Franco? Kaden says, nope, he doesn't know Ace Franco. That is one of Justin Roy's nephews, Ace Franco, present at the party. And as for when they left, well, Justin, I guess, was referring to Ace leaving just before 2 in the morning of Monday, so that's deemed as truly innocent. But then Ace Franco's mom in the background in a conversation elsewhere had said left by 10:30 or at least Sunday night. A few discrepancies. Doesn't help, does it? Ace Franco is the individual some months ago, as of 2025, that was arrested for, I believe, battery, assault, and firing, discharge of a weapon inside of a vehicle, moving or not, who knows, but some serious crimes committed. Were they a threat to Noah back at the party? Who knows? Worth highlighting. Next, what Kaden Pressy mentions is a list. And this is where it gets really interesting, and we can go over it a little bit. The individual in the conversation with Kaden had asked if you've got any times and details of when partygoers were present, when they left, it would be appreciated. And Kaden gave his list, but take in mind, it's more focused on when people left or if people left the party. However, no times are given whatsoever. I'm just reading it from how Kaden Pressy typed it up, okay? First one, Kaden mentioned Jack Newton. Jack Newton supposedly left the party once they were arguing. They? Who is they? Carter Combs. Supposedly, Jack Newton was arguing with his girlfriend, Carter Combs, and after the arguing, Jack left the party. I have never heard that before. Have you? What was the context about it? Does it link in any way with the Saturday past midnight argument between Noah giving a piece of his mind towards Jack because of Jack flirting with Noah's girlfriend at the time? Makes you think. How serious was the argument between Jack and Carter? Maybe we could get into a little bit more of that with a map analysis towards the end of this video. Jasmine Milan, Kaden said, never left the party, supposedly. Technically, they would have left the party once, like, the news of Noah's death onwards, but, you know, in terms of when, I guess, they arrived on a day and them staying there for whatever amount of time, Jasmine remained at the party. And, you know, I wouldn't contest that too much because from the snaps and photos and bits and bobs, it appears that they were there. But granted, it does depend on what day Kaden is referring to, because technically speaking, when it came to Sunday, I think they all left Sunday morning breakfast time because they all went out to get breakfast. So they all left at some points. I said the person was asking Kaden for like times and stuff and details, and Kaden does not mention what day these people left. So who knows what day Jack had an argument with Carter and what day Jack had left the house. As in what, leaving and not returning back, leaving on a Sunday, returning back on Monday. And how long for? Were they away? Who knows? But besides Jasmine Milan never leaving the party, Kaden had said that Stephanie Milan, the sister to Jasmine, did leave with her boyfriend, but not sure of the time. And there is truth to that, because like when it came to Renee Milan, the mother to Jasmine and Stephanie, whilst Jasmine was still at the party house post news of Noah's death, Jasmine was also the one to contact her mum Renee about the news, and that at the max was at 6 in the morning, and if not then, it was a little bit before that, 5:45, I think, which is late on compared to Kaden's timeline, of course. But besides that, taking time to get on down to the highway, but not getting too close, as Renee said, because of what was there, don't want to be too upset, then eventually reaching the party house. And whilst Renee was making her way down to the party house, Kaden had acknowledged in one interview, I believe the police recorded one of June 2024, Kaden reiterated it on my live premiere in the chat, that it was Renee Milan, mother, the husband, the daughter Stephanie Milan, and Stephanie's boyfriend, I think called Nichols or something like that. So Stephanie and boyfriend returning back at what time then? Around or close to 7 in the morning, supposedly, as Renee says. Well, Kaden says it was 6:30, but Renee says it was around 7 or a bit over. But at least there's consistency with Kaden acknowledging that it was Renee, husband, Stephanie, and Stephanie's boyfriend returning those two back to the party. But as for the time of when Stephanie Milan and the boyfriend had left in the first place, who knows? Was it on the Monday? Probably. But at what time? Before or after Noah's death? It'd be interesting to know. Did they see anything? Did they come across anything whatsoever? Next mentioned, Carter Combs. Kaden Pressy said that Carter Combs never left. But then, a bit later on in the text conversations, Kaden says, oh, I forgot to say that Carter left. So she didn't leave, but she did leave. I mean, from what's talked about in discussions online, supposedly Carter did leave at one point at least. And in the early days of the conversations online, Carter was described as the designated driver and was tasked with driving people back home. We don't hear about that as much now. Who were those people that were driven back home by Carter Combs, like a taxi service, and how long did it take? At what time as well? Did it clash with when Noah wanted a shower? Was it before that or was it after? And in what direction down the highway? And who was Carter taking home as well? And, or was it taking someone home? Or could that event have been, as worded online, that Mikey Lair needed to be somewhere? And we'll link it back together shortly because someone finished business there. Kaden Pressy mentioned about Avery Combs never left the party, that Mikey Lair never left the party. Might raise some eyebrows. That Isaac Rojas never left either. Well, if Mikey Lair never left, why is the discussions online stating that Mikey did leave at some point Monday morning to get down to Terrell, driven down supposedly by Carter Combs, and then supposedly picked back up, taken back down to the party house? And you would need a lift because you couldn't walk down to Terrell, even if it was somewhat close, because it's a highway. It's dangerous. So when Kaden says Carter did leave at one point, I'm guessing Mikey Lair may have been present with Carter too at that time, even though Kaden words it as Mikey never left the party. But how would Kaden Pressy know? If it was at the time of when Kaden was asleep, let's just say, Kaden wouldn't know who left and who arrived or returned. So that needs to be acknowledged. What I want to know is, where did it come from in the first place about the news of Mikey going down to Terrell to meet up with a girl, maybe a girlfriend or just a friend, and Carter giving him a lift down and then giving him a lift back to the house? Where did that originate from online? Who was the first person to mention that? Is it a rumour that turned into a fact? Is it down to poor communication, which was misunderstood? We might as well highlight it whilst we're here, and if anyone has answers, leave a comment down below. The next interesting one, Kaden Pressy says Brylan Sweat did leave the party once Jack Newton and Carter Combs were arguing, or around that time. But if Brylan Sweat left when Jack Newton and Carter were arguing, what time would that be? Because at the end of the day, Brylan, Isaac, and supposedly Mikey, from what Kaden said, they were like all together during, the announcement of Noah's death and post news of Noah's death and post highway, then eventually going back home and Kaden driving those guys back home and dropping them off one by one. If Brylan Sweat had left, before that? What, are we saying that Kaden didn't drive Brylan back home? It's just because how Kaden words it, this person left, that person left. Right, they've left. Did they return? And to some extent, obviously, based on, I don't know, maybe certain hard evidence and in other ways of wording it, you would expect or think so that they return back for Kaden to mention those names later and say how he left with them or went somewhere with them, some of the people, the guys. So it's a little bit weird how it was worded by Kaden, mentioning when people left, or who, more so mentioning who left the party, but no acknowledgement of what time, what day, or if they returned or not. I don't see how much good that does. It just causes a bit of confusion. The other mention of Travis, Monson, Colton, Newton, just to bring back up again because of the order of screenshot conversations, that they arrived at 10 to 11 p.m. At the latest 11 p.m, the same time as when Georgia and Brealey supposedly left. Really? That would have been a Saturday based on how we interpret the conversations. And it was Jack Newton that kicked them off the property. I still find it interesting how Jack Newton has the final say and power, who can come and who can go. Oh, we'll invite you down to the party. And as for you, well, you don't belong here. You stole alcohol the night before. Oh, Friday. No mention or acknowledgement of that before. Quite hush-hush about that day. But regardless, it's documented in my previous videos, part 1. Check back. But did Travis and Colton truly nod their heads and say, yes, one guy against us, 2, we need to go, we've been told to, that's what we'll do, we'll respect the wishes, really? What did the actual party host, the person that lives there, the birthday girl, did she want Travis and Colton present? Did she say, right, Jack, you've got all the power as in the guest list? It's just a bit unusual in a way. The reasoning behind kicking them away or pushing them off the property kind of makes sense to some extent, but as for the person that gave out the orders, the directive, it's just a little interesting. But I want to know your thoughts with the Jack Newton and Carter Combs situation of arguing taking place, and around that time, Brylan Sweat leaving. If he left, where did he go? Did he leave the room? Did he leave the house? Did he leave the property? Does Kaden interpret it as because he couldn't see Brylan, then it must mean that Brylan had left? Could it have been around the time when Brylan may have been the buddy that jumped into the shower with Noah Presgrove and Kaden couldn't see him? Now, besides that, some other conversations further on in the messenger mention of there was another girl that lived there at the party house but don't know her name. Basically, Kaden is referring to Logan Jernigan. But you know what I will say is, Kaden comes across as if he doesn't know this girl or that girl or this girl or that girl, which is somewhat consistent maybe with the Partners in True Crime Part 2 interview. But the Partners in True Crime Part 1 public interview, Kaden worded it as if he knew of all these different people and the girls and the party house. But in Part 2, the private one, it was like, oh, well, I don't know this person, I don't know that person, I've never been to the party house before. Do you know or do you not? It's one or the other, it can't be both. So I don't know what's going on there with Kaden Pressy. I'm interpreting it as the other girl that lived there, don't know her name, would have to be Logan Jernigan, because Kaden had already acknowledged Avery and Carter's name. There's only one other girl that was living there at the time, and that was Logan Jernigan. Let's not forget the time when Logan Jernigan decided to call out Warlight Raf on Facebook, going on about lasagna and eating meals on a certain day and feeling harassed or stalked or someone outside of their house through the window. Well, obviously it wasn't me. It turned out to be some local or person passing by in the US, Oklahoma, that decided to drive down there, drive down the dirt road, record the house and do a turnabout. And that night when that footage, or that early morning of that footage, was when Logan, Avery and Carter were dining room table or so, maybe, living room, eating lasagna. And then I was being called out for it. How interesting. Not amused. But beside that, it's interesting, we've not seen any other footage since. There's not really been anyone visiting, let's put it that way. But it's interesting, isn't it? That one time when you had that dark footage of a different person driving on down to the party house. We've not looked at it since because there's not really been a need to, but it was quite interesting and a bit eerie in a way. You had that water box or meter around the side of the house, but due to the angling of it, it was interpreted as a hazmat suit. That was cleared up in the end, but other people didn't check up on the updates, so they still believed it was a hazmat suit, which is unfortunate. Besides that, the next conversations moving on to October the 4th, 2023, Kaden Pressy and the person he was having a conversation with in the messenger, member of the general public, wanted to hang out with Kaden to eat food. Maybe it was a means of getting closer and getting Kaden to talk more and learn about the case and encourage him to reach out to the authorities to help the case. Hanging out, Mexican food, somewhere in Duncan, arranging the times, and Kaden said he was broke and the other person said, don't worry, I'll pay for it. And Kaden's like, well, okay, but you can buy me the stuff or choose the stuff. You have the right because you're paying. And Respect was shown. Nothing too deep there. I didn't write it down because it wasn't that important, but I do remember it. Kaden Pressy did mention in the conversations, I think onwards past that point, whether that be the same day or a different day, Kaden had mentioned that there was a girl that he was talking to at the time, but she blocked him. Now, to be talking to a girl, was Kaden in a relationship with that person at that point, October 4th, 2023, around that time, that month? And if Kaden was talking to a girl, was it a girlfriend status or not? And does it tie in line whatsoever with supposedly that footage which emerged on Reddit, where supposedly Kaden's mum Alicia was drag racing younger people in a car park and drinking, and as well Alicia supposedly pinning down Kaden Pressy's girlfriend and wouldn't let go? And Kaden's girlfriend or ex-girlfriend spoke out in a voice message, and it was posted on Reddit calling out Alicia and stuff. Has that got anything to do with the one that blocked Kaden, or is it a completely different event? If anyone knows the context, feel free to clear up down below. I thought I'd just mention it. As well, other conversations moved on with Kaden Pressy on the phone with authorities and was going to be transferred over to him. And I guess to him could mean Zachary Wright, the process of that. Kaden Pressy mentioned, and this is just in the order of how the conversations went because it did jump about a bit, but it was in the correct order. Kaden Pressy mentioned about that he doesn't know George's friend's name. Familiar by faces to some extent, but doesn't know the names, which was Breely. Kaden Pressy says, I'm better off with faces and recognising people. That might be true, but the problem is with that is Kaden Pressy also mentioned that he was going to reveal the identities, or at least spend some time to think and then reveal the identities, as in those in which Nerd Presgrove approached for a ride back home. But Kaden also said that he didn't see it, he only heard it. So if you only heard it, and you're better with people's faces for memory, how the hell are you going to be able to memorize who is who then if you never saw them in the first place based on faces? There's a bit of contradiction there, but that is where it is. The other person on Messenger said, do you know of a Kaden Johnson, which is the blonde-haired girl in the pink top that was there Saturday night who slapped Noah Presgrove across the face, if you remember? Kaden Pressy's response to that was, roughly in quotes, she was there only the night before, Saturday night, but I don't know who she rode with, as in drove down to the party with, whether she drove or somebody else drove and any other people tagging along. You might think that if Kaden Johnson got a ride down there to the party, that she may have relied on the same person or people the next day or whenever it was when they left, I guess. Now, if it's been mentioned that Sunday morning there was Kaden, there was Jack, there was Noah, there was Carter, Logan, Jasmine, Avery, Jasmine, if I missed out name out, Brylan, Isaac. Hopefully I've not missed out any names there. No mention of Stephanie Milan, which is weird. No mention of Kaden Johnson, the blonde-haired girl. So likely Kaden left maybe past midnight or Saturday night at some point. But some of these people that may have shown up or present later on Saturday evening, Saturday night, only to leave by midnight, only there for a short time. It's not much of a party. You'd think people like that and friends, you'd want to be sticking around for a bit longer. But, people are busy. They've got to be elsewhere. There's always that needs to be acknowledged. But not too much about Kaden Johnson, not from what we already know of, not really. Kaden Pressy did say she was like 16 years old. Now, if that really is true at the time, that's yet another underage person that was drinking and quite a young age as well, not even of an adult age, under 18, doesn't look good. Is Kaden telling the truth though, in regard to Kaden being 16 years of age at the time? I only say that because supposedly other partygoers have been described as 15 or 16 and it turned out they were a little bit older. Still underage, still not a good look, but some people may minimize or more so play it up and round down the number to make them as young as possible, to make it sound as shocking as possible, to push the concept of social hosting laws. I mean, a 15-year-old or a 14, 12-year-old being drunk is extremely shocking. A 17-year-old, or more so an 18-year-old of adult age but not of the drinking age, is still bad but not as shocking, just based on certain numbers. So always got to be aware of that. The other mention by Kaden Pressy was he got confused. I believe it was cleared up a little bit later, but not good enough. But I interpreted it the correct way. But Kaden Pressy got confused and misidentified the blonde-haired girl in the footage of the slap video of Shandon slapping Noah's face Saturday night. Kaden thought that was Georgia's friend because of the blonde hair, because Breely supposedly has blonde hair as well. So it was just a misidentification, that was all. Kaden worded it as, oh, she was. They left at 11 p.m. Sunday. As in, who Kaden was referring to, Shandon as Breely. Two separate people. Kaden was referring to Breely and Georgia leaving at 11 p.m, not Shandon, because Shandon was only there Saturday. But Kaden got confused with Shandon, the blonde-haired girl, Saturday night footage, or a screenshot of that, with Breely. You know, if you don't know those people properly in the first place, but you can characterize them by hair color and style, you could get confused between the two. Not the end of the world. I've cleared up there. And the hair looks the same. As Kaden said, the hair looks the same. Well, then you're probably going to misidentify the two people and think they're the same person, but they're not. So that's pretty much it for there. Do we have any more notes? Not from the looks of it there, but what we can do now, I guess, is transition on over to the maps and just analyse the possibilities of an argument taking place at the party. Here we are, transitioned onto the map, and in regard to these points, I believe this was a basic timeline what I created previously, some of it backed up with hard evidence, and you'll be able to read it yourself. The 10:51, Kaden Pressy records friends in Georgia. Well, we've seen the footage of that, and the timestamp, the overlay said 10:50 from the looks of it. 10:52, Noah Presgrove dancing in the kitchen. That time, there is footage of Noah dancing in the kitchen, but the time was not shown on the footage, but it was backed up by the words of Brooke Bounds Carter. And with that being 10:52 a.m., I guess it may be 12:48. I mean, the lighting was on. I don't know why I'm thinking that. 10:50 p.m. I think what I probably should have meant to say was 10:52 p.m. possibly. I don't know why it says a.m. Probably just a mistake made when typing it up, because, you know, the order it's in 10:50, then 2 minutes later. So not a.m. but p.m. And that'll be Sunday night. I only just picked up on it now. 12:48 a.m, which is past midnight. 00:48 Monday morning. Kaden Pressy picture taken of Georgia sick. I'm just going over some of these points made because we have seen evidence backed up by of photos as well, provided by Kaden Pressy, that posted the photo to Alicia at 12:48. So it's around that time or just a bit before when Kaden took the photo of Georgia. And yet Kaden Pressy is the one claiming that Georgia and Breely had left by 11 p.m. of Sunday night. Yet Monday morning there is proven evidence that Georgia was still there. So I don't know why Kaden Pressy would say that stuff. You get what I'm saying? Kaden's got his own hard evidence, but he's going against it in his just his words. Unusual. And where else you got these events going on, etc. At what point did the likes of Brylan Sweat leave? At what point did Jack Newton get into an argument with Carter Combs, and what was it about exactly? Where did the argument take place? Because all we ever really heard was the argument was between Noah Presgrove and Jack Newton. That happened once and possibly twice. One Saturday night past midnight, the other one being Monday morning, from what Justin Roy has said. The Saturday or past midnight one was quite aggressive and was pushing and shoving, and Kaden Pressy had to break it up physically, as Justin says, but Kaden has never acknowledged that, if you remember. Very unusual. And then the Monday one between Noah and Jack, girl trouble supposedly again, wasn't as bad or serious. But, you know, was it in between that when Jack got into an argument with Carter? Or was it Carter having an argument with Jack? Who started it first? What was the context? Did it have anything to do with, like, well, I mean, there would have been a delay as well, but would there have been any kind of correlation to past midnight of Saturday going into Sunday early morning when Kaden Pressy overhears Noah yelling at Jack because Jack was flirting with Noah's girlfriend at the time, or around the time, maybe a bit before the party? Did Carter Combs find out about that herself in the moment, a bit later, a day later, and then decide to have it out with Jack? What the hell are you doing? Why are you cheating on me? Maybe on the lines of that, not guaranteed. This is all coming from Kaden Pressy's mouth, and we're not seeing hard evidence of it. And it's the first time I'm really hearing about this alternative argument with different people for once, because all it was ever acknowledged before that was with Noah and Jack, but now it's Jack and Carter. Boyfriend, girlfriend, having some trouble, arguments, it is what it is, but, you know, did it involve Noah Presgrove in any shape or form? Any building standing tension which boiled over the next day, day after, linking in with Noah's death by any means or chance? Was there anything else that needed to be mentioned? Well, Stephanie Milan leaving with boyfriend. Which direction would they have gone in? Probably north, heading back. But depending what time they left, and if that's on a Monday, for example, could they have seen anything along the highway? Yes or no? Mikey Lair said to never have left, but as been mentioned on the community, was taken down to the town of Terrell, this place there, where a girl was. Maybe the girl lived here. Mikey meeting up with her to hang out, spend some time together. Did Mikey know of this girl before the party, or when he came on down Sunday? Who knows? They've been met online or met in town at one point in the past. Brylan Sweat leaving. There's been some talk in the background, just very recent, very brief, and maybe it can be elaborated in the comment section down below or in a future video. That's supposedly maybe an argument between Jack and Carter around the time Carter leaving, but Brylan Sweat leaving. Because how Kaden words it here, at least, that Brylan Sweat left once Jack and Carter had argued, and Carter may have left, but also the mention of Jack leaving as well around the time. So 3 different people leaving, 2 who had an argument with one another, going different ways, getting distance, and Brylan Sweat leaving as well. And in the background, people online are suggesting and talking about Carter Combs went to a cemetery and Brylan Sweat drove her to the cemetery. Now, which cemetery is that? Which is the closest one? Do we have any here? Baptist Church. I could possibly type it in. Right, so I've just typed it in, cemetery. It might not come up with every single one exactly, but it gives an example. You got a Ryan Cemetery, a Warwicker Cemetery, a Terrell Cemetery, Fleetwood Cemetery, Boren Cemetery. Out of all these cemeteries, which one did Carter and Brylan go to? And why exactly? Maybe to pay respect to someone Carter knows or family-related member, but, you know, of all the days of partying and all of that, maybe because it's coming up with Labour Day, there's a bit of significance behind it, getting it done before that, or on the day, to pay respect. Not far from Terrell, as you see. That's where it is there. I'm not too sure. Oh, you can go on Street View. Good. We've not done this for a while. So maybe a work in progress, this, which we could do in the future, right? Terrell down that way. Party house over that way in the distance. But right here, you got the cemetery. Last time I think I looked at a cemetery would have been the Dylan Rounds case. And I'm not saying that this is the place that Carter went to in Brylan, supposedly, but maybe. That's all. I'm not expecting to find or see anything here, but just to become a bit more familiar with the area and whose grave they could have possibly visited. Oh my God. That's definitely time travelled. Look at how old or dusty and rough that is. Can we get a bit closer? Does it take me any further? No, it doesn't. Doesn't give the date for this. There we go. Plot of land. Not quite open, to be honest. But I don't know when this was taken. Some nice trees present. And how long would they have been at the cemetery for? And if Carter and Brylan had returned back to the party house, would that have coincided with what, side-by-side rollover, or would that have been after it? Or before it? You let me know. Now, the only other one what we'll look at, just because it's local, take in mind near the cemetery you do have like a pond from the looks of it with some kind of damaged building, could be abandoned, looks a bit spooky. And then another one right there as well. I think that's cattle in black, it's highlighted. Some land nearby, whatever that is. So we don't need to focus too much on it just because it's not a missing person case. Not too far from Terrell, we can drive straight down, straight line. The only other one which I'll highlight, I guess, Ryan Cemetery, just off the highway there. Bigger in size, from as you can see. Can we get on the... Oh no, we can't, can we? It's a shame that. Will it allow me to click on it for photos? Maybe not. Nope. Sometimes it will let you if you click on the red marker, but it's not this time round. Which is a bit silly. The Warwicker one doesn't even work either. Got to take in mind, probably not this one, it's too far out. Also comes down to how long Brylan and Carter supposedly spent out at a cemetery. If it's 20 minutes or a bit less, could be the Terrell one more so. That was more established, Warwicker Cemetery. Now, it's just as a random question, that's simply it, because of, previous events unrelated to the case. 2020 Warwicker Lake boating accident, 7-year-old killed by boat propeller. Caleb Newton, Jack Newton's father, operating the boat at the time under possible influence of alcohol. Would that 7-year-old girl's grave be here, out of interest? This is a little question. Not to follow up on, just a question because, we're at Warwicker Cemetery. And it took place in Warwicker. Quite open, the graves and the patch spots, as you can see. Vehicles in the distance, maybe a tractor. Interesting. Move side to side so you get to see it all completely. Rows of trees as well. Very quiet then. There seems to be anyone or visitors. And if we go down here, just from a slightly different angle. Oh my god, the cars are duplicating. So it looks like it connects on all the way down here, possibly. So in the future there might be more. But still spread out, as you can see. So a trip down to a cemetery isn't exactly suspicious, but just the timing of when it supposedly took place to try and figure out as part of the timeline when it took place with the party house. And the argument between Jack and Carter, did that have anything to do with the breakup in the future when they temporarily parted ways? Was that a social media publicity stunt? Or was it was what it was and separate from anything from the party? Because there was a big space in between the two events, of course. You let me know, was there any other arguments? Because, to be honest, in fairness, when I did a video in the past about arguments with people, it was all about Noah and Jack, or Noah and Mikey with biting the finger. And no one brought it up back then when I was asking about any other arguments. No one else mentioned about Jack arguing with Carter. I've only just come across it now. So, it stands out to me at least. What about you? All in all, hopefully you found the video interesting. If you want to learn more, be on the lookout for future videos that will come. This was part 3 or part 4. The next one will be coming up. I believe that'll be part 4. I'll try and get that done by tomorrow or the day after and go on from there. Very interesting stuff. We possibly could do a follow-up on the cemetery if we can find a screenshot of whoever stating it in the first place with what happened. I think as a little heads up in the background, it wasn't from one of Kaden's interviews, it was actually from a screenshot by Kaden himself, and if that's really the case, and if that's true, I'm surprised Kaden never acknowledged it in any interview whatsoever, because it's pretty important enough to highlight who was where was what, and what was going on, and any arguments along the way, when it involves, whether it involves Kaden, which it wasn't, also involves Noah, which has been acknowledged, Jack acknowledged, but Carter never really acknowledged there until hearing about it just recent. Old stuff, yeah, but hearing about it for the first time does stand out more. For significant things not to be mentioned or brought back up since and publicly by Kaden or by others, it makes me think, is it because people don't treat it as important? I think it's very important. And you can let me know your thoughts in the comments. Be sure to hit the like button, share the video, and I'll see you next time. My name's Wyatt Rare. Thanks for watching. Goodbye. Good night for now.